We're living in chaotic and uncertain times right now. AI is coming at the speed of light, and there are a lot of fears and concerns about what it's going to do to society. A lot of people are afraid that AI is going to just wipe out entire industries and career paths, and that the only people who will benefit from the efficiency gains are billionaires at the top. Others are concerned with the ocean of generative AI content that is flooding social media platforms, YouTube, and even Hollywood. What is this going to do to art? Is everything going to be slop? What happens to the artist whose work was used to train these models? Is the destruction of the industry and art going to wipe out the human spirit? Can you even morally justify using AI, given that it's going to obliterate the world? These aren't abstract questions. We're all having to grapple with this, and everyone involved in the AI conversation online is getting more vitriolic and more hyperbolic, regardless of which side they come down on. There have even been major video game studios like Sandfall Interactive and Larian Studios getting raked over the coals for using AI assets in their concepting phase work. The mere accusation that someone has used AI in their creative work can be the death sentence for their career. This has escalated to a point of full-blown moral panic. And like virtually every moral panic before it, it's based on fundamental misunderstandings about the world. And today, we're going to put all of these to bed. But first, to address all the fears and concerns about AI and its consequences, it's important to understand what AI is, what it can do, and what it can't do, at least yet. You see, large language models are basically autocomplete on Bane juice. They don't really think, at least not in the way that a human does. What tech companies have done is to basically throw all of human knowledge into a blender and then use statistics to see what part of that smoothie you can actually get poured out of it. And the results are, frankly, amazing. But we've all seen how utterly bizarre and wrong things like ChatGPT can be. They can be hyper-competent in certain areas and then completely useless in other contexts. But it turns out that all of this is incredibly useful in the workplace. The areas in which AI excels are transforming the way we work. People are using AI for everything, and particularly in fields like software development and medicine, this is a huge force multiplier. The value of a single human's work can be multiplied by a factor of 10 or 20 if that person knows and understands what they're doing. And another way that you can increase your humanity score and create more shareholder value is to join our Patreon and get access to our exclusive Discord. Link in the description. But that being said, AI isn't simply an easy button you can press to get a finished product. You can't just ask Grok or Sora to generate a fully finished movie for you from whole cloth. So if you think these models are going to be able to make that sequel to Gone with the Wind that you've had kicking around in your head, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But this is where the fear starts. Even if AI isn't an easy button, the fact that you can multiply someone's productivity by an order of magnitude means that a lot of people are going to be automated out of a job. If companies can write code 100 times faster with fewer people, then they're going to have a lower headcount. And if these companies can make all of their money with fewer people, they'll be the only people making money, right? No. If you have a company that makes $1 million a year and they find that with AI, they can do it with half the people and half the time, do you really think they're going to only be satisfied with $1 million? Or are they going to shoot for 2 or 5 million? You see, successful companies don't sit idly by fulfilling an arbitrary quota of work. They exist because there's basically unlimited amount of work to be done out there and an extremely limited amount of people and resources that we can afford to do any of it. They make money by taking on and fulfilling some portion of that demand. The fundamental mistake everyone makes is thinking that the amount of jobs is limited by the amount of work we need to get done. But that's totally wrong. The amount of work we can get done is limited by the number of minds and machines that are available to us to do it. You see, we all want to get more work done, and we all want to have more work done for us, but we can't afford it because the supply of labor is limited. Increasing the amount of work that every human can get done directly creates more goods and services for everyone. In the realest terms possible, this is how we become wealthier as a society. And by augmenting, and in some cases replacing, human labor with AI, the whole world is going to get much richer. The difference is that the redundant drudgery that used to require a human being to do it can now be done by a computer.
Hey, how you guys doing? Good morning.
Well, another day, another 8 hours with their arms and a tank of dead fish, eh?
Yep.
A few moments later.
Ms. Henderson, would you bring in the new machine?
Machine?
Machine,
We can't be
bring it
replaced
in.
by machine. Hey, we're craftsmen. Guys, no way you're no way. No new machine. No new machine. No new machine. No No new machine!
And we know this is true. This isn't armchair philosophizing or theorizing. The fears that are being expressed over AI replacement right now were already expressed 50 years ago with the introduction of microprocessors and computers. And I don't mean that vaguely similar things were said. It is word for word the exact same line of arguments being made at the dawn of the computer age that we see right now with artificial intelligence.
How will we cope with automation on this scale? To build this, we'll be condemning a generation to unemployment. And if our industry employs so few people to generate wealth, how do we share the money out? Will we become a divided nation of the very rich and the very poor? Could we automate rapidly, even if we wanted to? Would the unions let it happen? Most unionists would hold the view that widespread automation is wrong, that the social pain would be too great.
I think it may be necessary for individual nation states to make clear decisions about what kind of societal development they want, and if necessary, be prepared to protect themselves from the ruthless introduction of this kind of equipment by the multinational corporations. Because in my view, it is spurious to suggest that the introduction of this kind of equipment enhances and improves the quality of life automatically. It may improve the profit for big multinational corporations, but it's going to cause massive problems in this country. And if necessary, we should protect ourselves against the introduction of that kind of equipment.
The BBC documentary is still online, and you absolutely need to go watch it because it's wild. All of the fears expressed in it are the same things that are being said today, and literally none of them came true. None of them even came close to being true.
Whatever happens, we are going to be losing job opportunities for industries that are dying in this country, and there is talk of creating new ones. The implication of that film is we're going to be losing a lot more jobs. Secretaries, shop assistants, warehousemen, as well as production workers.
What happened instead was that computers created and are still creating entirely new fields of industry and work that requires people to do jobs. The job market expanded, more goods and services were produced, and existing industries, they didn't get wiped out, they expanded too. And this is what is truly crazy about all of this. People have no memory of how bad things used to be in the world, how poor we really were, even in the United States. As recently as World War II, about a third of the US population lacked running water in their homes. More than 50% lacked complete plumbing, including hot water, dedicated bathrooms, etc. The only reason that we don't see this sort of poverty today is because through the automation of the production of the things necessary to create indoor plumbing, the cost of these things has plummeted so far that it wiped that poverty out entirely. This is what enhancing efficiency actually means. It doesn't mean that we fire everyone and then grind them up into Soylent Green.
Silent Green is people!
Or that only an elite cabal of Wall Street investors get to have an income. It means that the tasks that used to require dedicated work can now just be done by machines. Human wants are basically unlimited, and satisfying those wants is constrained by how much work we can accomplish. When everyone's productivity increases, more of our wants get satisfied and more people get paid to satisfy those wants. The introduction of artificial minds, and I understand that is a deliberately loaded term here, isn't going to make everyone on Earth redundant and unemployable. If that were the case, why haven't we already seen that happen? In the last 200 years, the population of the world increased from 1 billion to about 8 billion. We certainly didn't run out of work with the introduction of more labor, and we certainly aren't poorer than we were. And anyone who tells you that we are is absolutely out of their minds or lying. 100 years ago, less than 1% of US households even had a refrigerator in their home. To say that we've been made poorer through automation of production is literally insane. So what happens then if human labor gets automated? Certainly some jobs have to go away, right? Well, yes and no. Instead of talking about the Industrial Revolution, though, let's just limit this to the computer age. What happened to the jobs that are automated by computers? Well, in the 80s and 90s, the typing pool in the office transitioned from being a singular skill set of simply producing documents and correspondences into one that encompasses a lot more responsibility and a lot more important work. These typists became office managers and executive assistants. They weren't stuck doing a rote task because the machines allowed everyone to do what they were doing previously. It freed them up to do work that didn't exist before. It allowed them to satisfy more of those human wants that we couldn't do previously because as a society, our labor wasn't productive enough to allow for it. We had to dedicate time to doing the drudgery first because there was no other means of accomplishing it. And this is exactly what is happening in the tech sector right now. AI is fundamentally shifting the skills of programmers, project managers, salespeople, and virtually every other aspect of business. These people aren't going to be rounded up and thrown into a landfill, as much as I might like to see that, because an autocomplete program could write their emails for them. Their labor is being freed so that they can do more interesting work. And despite what TikTok girls might tell you, these types of jobs aren't exactly glamorous to begin with.
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my god.
Office Space hit the nail on the head 30 years ago when it depicted office jobs as largely soul-crushing drudgery.
We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this? Yeah.
I remember thinking after seeing that movie, I never want to work in a cubicle. Most people correctly intuit that this type of work is not fulfilling, engaging, or even particularly challenging. We shouldn't be lamenting that this sort of labor is being automated any more than we lament the automation of accounting or mathematics. Because like 200 years ago, intellectual labor, so to speak, used to be soul-crushing shit work. Being a junior engineer in 1850 meant that you were doing calculations by hand all day, every day, for years. And if you made a mistake, it meant that a bridge was going to collapse and people were going to die. The invention of mechanical calculators and eventually computers wiped those jobs out entirely, but there wasn't mass unemployment because of it. It simply meant that people were able to use these tools to do that work in a few minutes instead of a few hours, and that they could now apply that work to more interesting problems. This is exactly what AI is doing across pretty much every industry in the world. It's eliminating the drudgery and allowing us to take on challenges that we couldn't afford to do beforehand. Everyone has been begging for an end to the misery in offices and doing their TPS reports, answering endless emails, circling back to synergize key business metrics. And as it turns out, some nerds may have actually made that a reality. If the computer can do all of that for us now, why aren't we all celebrating? Instead of recognizing that this is going to make the entire world way richer, we're complaining that the machine is going to take away our days of endless data entry. We're complaining that we won't be stuck proofreading terrible ad copy day in and day out for the rest of our lives. Why doesn't anyone understand that just like 200 years ago, we are poor right now, and we are all stuck doing soul-crushing busy work because our labor isn't productive enough to do something more interesting?
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
And I understand if you were just laid off by Salesforce a couple months ago, this is not going to be any consolation to you. But the panic and apocalyptic visions of a world where no one has a paycheck and no one has any real work to do is a ghost story that's being told to you. It's fake. These visions aren't based in reality, and the people out there that are praying for the AI bubble to finally burst and for it to all come crashing down and go back to normal are people that can't think beyond first-order consequences on anything. They see AI slop videos being created and assume this is the only thing that AI is capable of. They'd like to see the entire technology burn to the ground and disappear forever, when what that would actually mean would be the continued impoverishment of the entire human species. No one sees or cares that AI and large language models are being applied to medicine, to law, to mathematics, and every other boring field out there, and that the gains that are going to come out of this are going to mean that fewer people suffer and die from bone cancer and degenerative diseases that currently aren't curable. They're so consumed by their hatred of things like AI-generated art that they'd rather mankind be stuck with the primitive medical technology that we have available today. The multiplication of the human intellect and the ability to process massive amounts of data in ways that we couldn't have even imagined just a few years ago is going to save people's lives. But furry artists and other inbred freaks are so vehemently opposed to this technology that they'd rather the entire thing be killed in the crib to protect their deviant art pages. They've made it their mission to destroy anyone using generative AI in any capacity in the production of products that they ostensibly want. And it's sad to see companies like Larian be open about their production processes and how they were using AI tools in the concept phase, being attacked by people who have never made a single thing of value in their own life. This went so far that Larian actually issued an apology and now claim that they aren't going to use these tools at all. And whether or not that's actually true is beside the point. But instead of sticking to their guns and making completely reasonable use of AI, they open themselves up to the mob that will never be satisfied by anything they say ever again. And here's the kicker. Larian wasn't using AI to replace their workforce. They were actually hiring more artists and simply allowing them to use every available tool at their disposal. And I hate to break it to people who have said, oh, well, I won't buy Larian's games because of generative AI. But you're going to have zero impact on their bottom line. No one is going to care if the texture for the stitching on the NPC's dress was made by AI or human hands. No one's going to care if the bricks on the wall were painted by a human or generated by an AI model. Because once again, AI, it's simply not an easy button. These games and art more generally are not the product of text prompts. They're the combined labor and vision of hundreds or even thousands of people cooperating together to make some of the most complex software and entertainment experiences ever dreamed up by mankind. There's a lot of drudgery involved in making games, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with automating it. But to be fair to these people, they aren't simply claiming that automation of drudgery is bad. They're actually arguing something much stupider than that. You see, their argument isn't based on any sort of apocalyptic economic thinking. Their argument is that generative AI in and of itself is tainted because it was trained on their publicly available data. They claim that the copyright to their work has been violated and that the profits being made by these companies are infringements on their work. They believe that they should be paid in perpetuity because AI is basing its output on their input. But like we said at the beginning, these image and language models work by essentially feeding them all of human knowledge and putting them into a blender. This requires that the companies making them scrape tremendous amounts of data from the internet, and you can basically assume that any information that you ever put online or published in an electronic format has been used in this process. So all this information has gone into the data blender and been analyzed to produce a process of pattern recognition. When you give an image model a text prompt, it then spits out some approximation of what it thinks you want. But it's not doing this in a way that looks up the previous images it has analyzed and tracing over them, or even using a single pixel from any one image to construct something new. It's actually doing something much weirder than that. The data that was used to train the models does not exist inside the model. There's no database that it's looking at to pull references from. Instead, image generators start with randomly seeded patterns of pure noise. It then applies a transformation to the noise, does some statistical analysis to see if that transformation corresponds more or less to the input prompt than it did previously, and then continues to iterate through this process over and over and over again, denoising it until an image is finally formed. This process is just a pattern recognition being applied over and over again. No individual work is being implemented in any given art generation, and in fact, these models can't reproduce specific images perfectly, even super famous images like the Mona Lisa, because it doesn't have the image to draw from. The only thing it can do is produce an approximation of that image based on its pattern recognition skills. Seriously, go try this. It won't work. And if you're dumb enough to think it does, it's because you don't actually have an eye for art. And while AI is using mathematics and code to do this analysis, it's not different in principle to how human beings learn to get better at art. Every single artist out there studies the work of other artists. A lot of people practice by trying to duplicate famous works of art themselves. And when good artists go on to create their own art and sell it commercially, no one complains that they trained on someone else's data. No one's trying to sue them for copyright infringement. This is nothing but sour grapes. And none of these people actually care about copyright at all. They don't care that people download JPEGs. I mean, they do that themselves. Many of them pirate software and entertainment. They won't complain if generative AI diagnoses their cancer and saves their life. And literally no one complains when people make YouTube videos actually reusing clips from movies and TV in their video to make their point. I can hear the screaming in the comments from the furries and deviant artists now, but unless they made it to this point in the video, the thought of complaining about our use of clips from the BBC shows, Kids in the Hall, and Zoolander just didn't even occur to them. Because why would it? That would be crazy. It doesn't matter if this is considered fair use under the law. What matters is that this channel and tons of other YouTube channels constantly make direct use of copyrighted material, and no one cares. But when someone uses an AI model to generate a new picture that doesn't actually make use of copyrighted work outside of vague pattern recognition, everyone loses their mind. You see, despite the moral outrage and seething about ethical concerns with AI image generation, I don't think a single one of you actually cares about the moral dimension. What I think you care about is that despite being pretty ugly, AI image generation is better than most low-level artists. It's been able to automate the sort of drudgery that you call art and make it accessible to anyone and everyone. And before everyone gets their pitchforks and torches and starts accusing me of being an AI slop fanboy, just relax for a second. Because I do think that there's a legitimate criticism of AI art that almost none of these people ever make. It's that it's just ugly. It really is as simple as that. What AI is producing is not art. There is no intentionality, it often gets things like perspective and anatomy totally wrong, and it's missing everything that actually makes a piece of art art. Here at Black Lodge Games, we actually work with artists fairly often because we publish tabletop role-playing games, and we need fantasy art for our books. We're on a budget, so we can't afford original pieces for every single thing we put on the page. So oftentimes we end up purchasing stock art or searching the public domain. But there are times where neither of those sources can create what we need. But we don't turn to AI for this because AI is not, like we said, an easy button, as much as we'd all like it to be. Our book covers and a lot of the interior pieces are drawn by real human artists because they're able to work with us to create something new and unique. AI generation simply can't come up with what our artists do because AI is attempting to give us explicitly what we asked for in a text prompt, and that isn't actually what we want in the first place. What we want is for an artist to take the basis of our idea and turn it into something even better. We often come to an artist with like a basic Microsoft Paint sketch and ask them for input. Invariably, they come up with a concept that is much cooler than we did and then create something way better than what we pictured in our own minds. And it isn't simply the extra conceptual work that they're bringing to the table that makes this better. They aren't just coming up with a better text prompt than we could on our own. They're bringing their individual eye and their craft to the table. And the process that they go through when creating a piece of art actually adds to the final product at every step of the way. They're making deliberate choices in the same way that we do when we write. These choices actually have meaning, and the AI isn't really making choices. It's just spitting out what it thinks approximates the textual input according to some complex arithmetic. It's trying to pour out part of that data smoothie that it thinks that we want. What it creates, I mean, it is new and it is unique. It's just not good. I don't want a plastic illustration of a generic fantasy hero with too many belts wrapped around him. I want something weird and horrific, beautiful and alien, grotesque and human. Art is fundamentally human, and some human artist is going to find a way to use AI as a component in the creation of real art. But art is not something that is simply produced at the push of a button. It requires that choices be made, that intent be expressed, and the computer is simply not doing that. The end product of a good human artist always ends up being something better than we could have hoped for, and there is no universe in which an AI generation could produce the sorts of illustrations and paintings that we want in our work. I don't want a machine that just vomits out approximations of what I told it to make. I want someone to work with my vision and bring their vision to it and make it a reality. And there's also no universe in which I will be able to illustrate as something as competently as one of these AI models can. Most people are in the same boat as me, and guess what? I'm not going to fault them for using AI to generate pictures that they'll put in a slide deck or use to make memes or even to make something like a logo for their business. I'm not even going to bat an eye if a game studio uses AI to make the brick textures for the walls in a level. And I'm certainly not going to try to cancel someone for doing so because I'm not an insane person. And while I will admit that I don't particularly like the future trajectory we're on to have an ocean of AI slop content flooding our feeds every day, the idea that this is going to doom art or destroy the human spirit is completely hyperbolic nonsense. Artists, particularly great artists, cannot be denied and they cannot be stopped. They have to create because what is inside them needs to be expressed. It's a core aspect of the nature of our species to create art. And yeah, most of it's going to be bad, but good art will always cut through the noise. What we have today is a total moral panic that's being fueled by what I would call moral entrepreneurs. These are people that have nothing good going on in their lives, and they've identified a gap in the marketplace of outrage that they are exploiting to hurt other people because they're just incredibly small themselves. They are preying on the fears that are based in fundamental misconceptions about how the world works, and no one is going to remember them or what they were complaining about in a few years. More importantly, these are people that will never create anything themselves. They're incapable of doing that. They are incapable of doing anything but malding online and trying to drag all of civilization down into their own misery. You don't have to join them, and you don't have to feel bad because you used Midjourney to make a meme. Right, Jamal?
It do be like that, Mr. Stancil.